I got this blanket of Banksy made by Fur Baby Prince, and I've put it on my mom's bed, and I'm gonna surprise her with it. It's super cute. They do custom blankets, and I sent them a photo, and then they made it into like a digital painted version of him. And as you can see, it literally is completely his essence. And then I chose the pattern in the background, and it's super, super soft, and I wish I could keep it, but I got it as a gift for my mama, so we'll see what she thinks.
What is this? What is this?
It's Banksy.
Well, I know that, but how is it Banksy? Oh,
it's custom made.
What the heck? How did you do this?
Fur Baby Prince makes blankets like this.
What the heck?
And they digitized it like that. I didn't do it. A baby Banksy. You folded it and he looks so weird when it's folded like that.
How did you do this?
They like draw it and make it him.
Just like him.
Yeah. Yeah,
When did you do this?
As a surprise.
Oh.
Do you like it?
Yes.
Yay.
How did you do this? This is so awesome.
Well, I sent them a photo and I picked the pattern, and then they did everything else.
Okay, this is really soft and beautiful.
Yay.
Soft and beautiful.
Well, that's your new throw blanket.
My Banksy. I'm having a nap right now with it. Can I do that?
Yeah, you can do that.
I'm snuggling with my Banksy.
Aw.
Oh,
And now you can forever. Yeah, I used the photo of him with his tongue out.
Oh, that's so cute. I can't believe that they can do this.
Yeah.
This is super, super
And they're really
cool.
well priced too.
Oh, it's so soft.
Yeah, we should get more.
So this company does this for like all kinds of animals? Or
Yeah,
just
any
horses,
animals.
or?
Any animals.
So
Whatever animal you want.
So cool. Look at this.
Yeah.
Nap time.
Yeah. Oh my god, Phoebe. Basically, my plans with him, he's smelling poo, are to get him restarted. I'm gonna start the groundwork soon and get him like ground driving and stuff. But even though he's turned out all the time with Milo and Percy, he's quite hot when you bring him out. So that's why I'm free lunging him before I start to do anything with him, just so he's at a better brain place to do stuff. Like, the whole hotness factor, even though he's turned out, is one of the reasons why I adamantly say anyone that has young horses, especially if you're getting young horses off the track, it's completely unethical to have them and not turn them out. Even if they're just in a small paddock, that's better than nothing. But really, young horses should be in group turnout and getting used to being outside. And if a horse is stressed in turnout, that's a management problem, because they do not come out of the womb being afraid of the outdoors. So it's a tragedy if your horse is afraid of being outside. And like I said, anyone who gets horses off the track, if they don't have the means to turn them out and give them letdown time, I don't think they should do it. The horses are better off going to someone who does that, because even track trainers give them turnout during the off season. So yeah, we'll use this as part of my Thoroughbred series. I'm gonna do it with Percy and Pogo. I love both of these boys, they're a lot of fun. Pogo's a lot sharper than George. His sire's Texas Wildcatter, and he's known for throwing really hot babies. I free lunched him yesterday, so he's not as hot today. Like, Pogo just needs a job, and he's a moron clearly when he doesn't have one. So yeah, he's a lot better today.
Perrin, what are those? He says, I get you, I'm gonna play.
So since I'm including this in part for my Thoroughbred series, I want to say that if you want to be successful with Thoroughbreds, turnout is like #1 on the list of importance. Like I said, I don't think people should have horses in general if they can't at least offer them paddock turnout like this. So Perrin is disgusting. So in saying that, I don't think people should own young horses if they cannot provide them with at least paddock turnout. And if your horse is stressed in turnout, it's your job to make them not stressed, because riders are willing to deal with stress when it's under saddle, which means it's an inconvenience when your horse is stressed and it affects your riding, so you want to fix it. But apparently with turnout, for some people, they're not willing to undo that inconvenience and make it work and make the horse more happy. And basically all the studies we have on excessive stalling show that there's significant mental and physical repercussions for that. So if you're not willing to adjust something for your horse's well-being, why have an animal? Maybe rolled Perrin and he's covered in shit now, so that's awesome. So Pogo has not been saddled or worn anything girth-like since being at the track. I'm gonna put a stir single on him today for the first time since like June. So it might be like restarting him, we'll see. Because even Milo, who's obviously very broke and gets worked fairly frequently, I have to pretty much reintroduce the stir single to him every time, and he has a bronc fit every time it's on because the pressure distribution is different. So hopefully Pogo is not like Milo and we can have some calm, nice work in the stir single. I've not worn a bridle since the track because I've not done anything with him, so.
He says, oh, interesting. Oh, good man. Your forelock is so astoundingly beautiful, Pogs.
Hideous.
Let's zoom in on this beautiful concoction. What is this that you have come up with? Yeah. Like.
So anyways,
wow.
I thought Pogo was hideous when we got him, and he's actually grown into himself rather nicely.
He's a cute fellow.
He's a late bloomer.
Yeah, his forelock is astoundingly beautiful.
Oh, you're being a good boy. He's watching the dogs pretty intently.
Perrin is filthy.
Yeah, Perrin's disgusting.
Wow, Perrin, nice. Good job, buddy. He says, I'm a kid.
Smart. So smart. SMRT.
Good man.
Good boy. The key with thoroughbreds and any young horses, if you baby them and act like they're going to explode every time you do something, they're going to feed off of your energy and they probably are way more likely to explode. So I just expect that they're going to be okay with everything. And if they're not, I deal with it when they show me that they're not okay. But if you walk on eggshells and act like you're scared around them all the time, they'll be scared. So
good little man.
To not be dramatic. I'm gonna do up the cinch away from you because if he does freak out, I don't want you to get nailed in the face.
Oh, so, okay, that's really thoughtful of you. Thank you.
Yeah. And leaning
so
in front
nice.
of your horse's legs like this isn't the smartest thing to do, especially with a 2-year-old.
Mm-hmm. Look, he says I walk with it on and it's just fine. Look at his cute little bum. His bum is rounder and very cute now. Pear Bear, where are you, my man? Oh, good boy. He says, I'm just eating poops. Oh, good, Pogs. Oh, Pogie, you're a good man. He still has a baby face. Right? Yeah.
Good man. Good boy. So with Pogo, my goals are just to get him ground driving so that we can get him broke on the ground and being respectful of the bridle on the ground, so that by the time we get on him, he'll be really feeling quite nice. So that's the goal. Hey, Wiener. He also isn't very good at lunging, so we'll see. So he has to lunge first before.
Oh, his little bum tuck. So what? Good boy.
Good man.
He's tippy-toe through the water. Oh, good boy. What is that? It's a funny trot.
So I kept this lunge session for Pogo pretty simple and easy since it was his first day back in a little while. And another thing to keep in mind is that I don't lunge young horses for very long because circling is quite hard on their joints. So this session was only about 5 to 7 minutes because we don't want to drill him on it and do a lot of repetitive circling on a smaller circle. I kept it simple and just asked him to trot out to get used to the stir single initially, and then we did some downward transitions and reversed him and got him going to the right, which would be his weaker direction since they gallop predominantly to the left on the racetrack. He is pretty balanced both directions because he hasn't ran very much, so I was overall very impressed and very happy with him and how well he took to lunging since he hasn't done it in a while. I put the bridle on him to lunge him so that he could get used to mouthing the bit again and get used to the types of bits that I use. On the track, he would have been galloped in a single jointed bit or possibly a ring bit. I haven't looked at the equipment they used on him, but it would be one of those two bits. I use double jointed bits, and these are my favorites, so I just like getting them used to them and getting him used to being bridled again since it's been a while. A fun fact about Pogo for people who don't know is that he's George's half-brother. They are out of the same dam, but Pogo has a different sire.
Man. Good listening, man.
Okay, so that was only about like 5 minutes of lunging, but he like knows how to lunge and he listened, and he didn't freak out about the stir single, so that's enough for his first day back. And then I'm gonna do a few more repetitions of lunging and just getting him better with the voice commands, and then we'll start doing stuff to introduce him to ground driving, which basically we need to make sure he's okay with having the rope around his hind end and stuff. Otherwise, you run into problems when they're ground driving. So we have to get him used to having the rope behind him, and we'll do little exercise drills where you bring it around behind them and then work on that before we actually hook him up to a set of lines, because if you do it before they've been desensitized, you're setting yourself up for failure. So that's all for today, and I'm really not in a rush with him, so our training may be infrequent because he's gonna get put on the sidelines depending on how busy I am, because he's only 2 and he doesn't need to be rushed. So we're not really worried about getting him going quickly. Good boy.
And he's a pretty willing dude.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and he is already broke.
Yeah, you're a good man. He says I have a good baby brain. Do you have a good baby brain? Are you? Oh my gosh. Oh, he's gonna go right in. Cuddles. Oh. Okay, that's really sweet. Look at our man.
Nice. You snuggle bud. I
He's
know
coming
you
closer.
have your teeth coming out soon. Oh my goodness, losing teeth left and right.
Play it together. Try which one can take him on. Teamwork. Oh yeah. Here comes Percy and doggos. Phoebe, stay out of the way. Out of the way. Good. Perrin, stay out of the way. Good kid. Ow! Jeez, that was my bloody knee he just crushed his giant bulking body into. Huh? No, just my knee. My bloody as in like a swear, like a British swear. Bloody heck. Amazing.
So Percy is my coming 4-year-old thoroughbred gelding that I used to gallop, and I share him with my working student Janae. And she's done most of the riding on him since the track. I've only gotten on him once. And then for the last several weeks, he's been put on the back burner because of weather and time constraints. So I'm gonna get on him today. And something I do kind of differently from a lot of people, I guess, is if I know the horse well enough, and since I gallop these guys, they go the whole winter off and we just get on them without lunging them. So I'm not gonna lunge him first. I know that he's broke and he's a good boy, and I just expect him to kind of keep it together, and if he doesn't, we'll just work through it, because that's what we do at the racetrack. And obviously that's not what everyone does, but I find like I like to limit lunging before rides if I can, unless I'm positive that the horse is one that's just going to completely explode, which I don't think he is. So I'm going to get on him and just have a nice little hack about in the arena. He's not been ridden at this property yet, but he's been worked in the arenas. And yeah, he's old enough to be a responsible young man for the most part. Baby moments are okay, but I don't really find lunging limits them unless you lunge them to the point that they're tired. And lunging them till they're tired just sets them up for failure, because they build fitness, and then you have a fit horse that you eventually won't be able to lunge to the point of fatigue. So lunging should really only be used to warm them up, and maybe just take a slight edge off if they need to have a couple bucks and play. But other than that, I don't really think it should be used to wear them out. So
is it more like with the lunging then that it's almost like taking the edge off their brain, getting them thinking again, kind of almost?
Also giving them the chance to play in a way that you don't want them to under saddle, I would say. However, you kind of want them to be responsible citizens on the lunge line if you use it for work. So when I'm lunging them not for work, I usually just do it in a halter. I don't lunge them with anything on them if they're being allowed to play, to kind of differentiate. But anyways, Percy will be 4 in April, and we will start jumping him around then. We're just going to get a nice dressage foundation until then. He looks great, like he's put on a really good weight. He was quite lean at the track. He really didn't like racing. So he's filled out beautifully and he's looking a lot more mature. So I think he's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm going to briefly talk about bits because I get a lot of questions about these. This is pretty much my go-to bit for horses off the track. It's the Centaur Eco Pure Egg Butt with a peanut. And it has a light rubber coat, and then this bit's a lot thinner than a lot of traditional rubber bits. And thoroughbreds have low palates, which means there's less room in their mouth than a lot of other breeds, so doing a really thick bit usually doesn't work as well for them, and this is also why a lot of them don't necessarily prefer corded bits. Most of my other bits are basically the exact same action as this. I don't have a lot of variety in terms of action because I want all of my horses going softly and nicely in snaffles. If they cannot flatten a snaffle, I view that as a huge issue. So it's something that I work on through exercises rather than bitting up. The strongest bit that I have currently is a leather mouthpiece. And it has like a very mild gag action, but it's not like a traditional gag or like a 3-ring bit like that. So this is my favorite one for go-to for thoroughbreds, and then I also have a variety of other French link bits that are anatomical and all snaffles. Like I don't own anything.
And one completely leather one that has no gag action that's super soft as well. Okay, so this is Percy's cute little chinny chin chin. She probably won't put this in the video, but look at how cute that is.
Okay. Percy's really narrow right now, like more narrow than my other horses because he's the smallest horse I own, so I'm using a half pad on him because all of my saddles are for wider built horses. He is filling out and he actually has quite a big chest for his height, so I don't think it'll be long before he's a more similar shape to them, but he's just narrow right now.
Good boy. Oh, such a good
Percy
man.
used to have like a really big issue with standing well for being tied, so we've been practicing that a lot with him because he was really hard to bridle and stuff, so he'd just be screwing around the whole time. So my nose bends are essentially just for aesthetics. I don't think a nose bend should be used to strap their mouths shut because they kind of need free movement of their jaw in order to be truly soft, and you want them to be comfortable, so it should never be tighter than what allows for 2 fingers to fit underneath of it.
Or way more.
So we're just gonna have a nice light ride. He doesn't need to do anything crazy. I just want to kind of see where he's feeling and where he's at after his little break. So another thing to keep in mind with off-the-track thoroughbreds, especially when buying straight off of the track, is that at the racetrack, they're virtually only ever legged up onto. Some of them are mounting block broke, but not all of them. So when you get on your horse for the first time from the mounting block, it's important to keep this in mind and start to teach them how to stand at the mounting block if they don't already know how. And just be aware that they might scoot forward when you mount from a mounting block because it's not something they're very used to. As you can see in this video, Percy doesn't really care. He's totally fine with it. So he was probably block broke or he just doesn't care. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're mounting, just for safety issues and whatnot. It's something that I always keep in mind when I'm getting on them because I've had horses go scooting forward because you're in the air longer when you're getting on from a mounting block than when you're getting legged up on. And also you're standing higher above them for a longer period of time when you're using the mounting block. So for our walk warm-up, I mostly just showed him everything in the arena and got him flexing a little bit. And then we started our trot work after he'd done his walk warm-up. And at the trot, really our main focuses are developing a good rhythm and then getting him to bend around my leg through turns. And we do lots of changes in direction, like little circles and just stuff to kind of keep him focused and with his brain on me rather than the goings on around the farm. And in this arena, it was quite puddly and he wasn't really digging the puddles. So I did end up bringing him into our other arena because there is less obstacles. The jumps need to come down in this arena. So once we do that, there will be more room to ride him in. But the other arena is great. The problem with the other arena that he didn't love is that it's right by the chicken coop. And a lot of the racehorses that get off the track are afraid of chickens because they've not really seen them. So he had a little look at that, but other than that, he kind of went straight to work and it was awesome. So Percy already has quite a good rhythm. He's very nice and forward and doesn't really suck back speed-wise, and he doesn't really try to shoot forward and go faster or run away from me at the trot. He wasn't really digging the puddles here, so he's a little silly getting around them. And then he is also looking at the chickens a little bit at the top half of the arena, so he would throw his left shoulder into the circle rather than flexing around my leg and curving his body outwards and moving off of my leg. But that's really not a big issue, especially at the stage of riding that he's in. So when he does throw his shoulder in, my main focus is just trying to push him out and get him flexing around my leg and get him to stop coming into the circle so much. So we worked on this with the leg yielding at the walk for the warm-up initially, and now I'm applying it under saddle to try to get him to stop throwing his shoulder in. He doesn't really throw his shoulder in much when he's going to the right. So his rhythm is quite good, so we send him forward to canter, and you'll notice in this transition to canter that he really runs and scoots into it, and it's just not good. So the first canter transition of the ride is always typically the worst, and obviously this proves it right here. So yeah, he scoots, he's a little nervous because I was sitting through the transition, and he's more so used to having me out of the tack for transitions, because as a racehorse, I would be in a light seat and then I'd roll him forward into a canter. So when they do this, I honestly just ignore the behavior, sit there, send them forward, get them going quietly again, don't make a big deal out of it. If you discipline for this, because they're not even being bad, it's just a mistake because they're young, disciplining just makes them more stressed, and eventually you'll have a horse that doesn't even want to try because they get in trouble and they don't know why. So when I transition him to canter again, I'm more prepared this time and we get a much better transition and he's happy. His canter is really well balanced for a racehorse, especially in such a small arena. So I was very impressed about this. And he wasn't really trying to run off. He's going a little bit quickly, but it's not really a big deal because they also tend to go faster due to lack of balance. They're not really used to having to collect or shorten their stride a ton, especially in such a small arena. It's important we keep in mind how large the track is in comparison to the vast majority of arenas that we are riding in. They just have so much more room to run and it's not constant bending like what we are doing in the arena. So it really is quite a bit different. So to the left, I'm just working on doing circling at the trot and again, getting more of a rhythm and just getting him to quiet down and relax into the bridle. I really like Percy's natural headset. He has a tendency to stretch forward and out, and then he runs into the transition again to the left. So again, this isn't really anything that I discipline. I ride through it. He's disunited. I don't shut him down right away because if I did, it would tell him that he was in trouble when technically he gave me the right answer because I asked for canter and he did it. So then we ask again, we get a quieter transition. He's happy and he picks it up and isn't disunited, and that's great. So he gets rewarded for this by getting to canter for longer, and we start working on the canter and just getting him to settle down and slow down a little bit. I circle him, and if they get going really fast, you can change the size of the circle to get them to slow down if half halts aren't working. But he's really not trying to run off on me. I can mostly use my seat to get him to slow down, and he's maintaining the same relative pace, which is great. So I'm really happy with him in this ride. He was great. He's really well naturally balanced, and I love his natural carriage. It's really not going to be hard for him to find a good spot on the bit and start to relax and become a dressage horse. So I'm really excited about that because all of the natural foundational things he has and he finds easy. So it'll be really easy for him, I think.
And for this little dude, like if he had been one that wouldn't go on a loose rein at the trot, if it took him longer, you would just wait until he was ready, right?
The difference with him is like I galloped him,
yes,
so
you know
I know
what he's like.
him, and he was never one of the horses that when you galloped, he wouldn't get really strong and he wasn't running off on people. He was always really light in the mouth, which you can kind of see at the canter. He has a tendency to curl more, and when he's not sure, he kind of wants to tuck in, which isn't good. So we want him to start taking a little bit more of a hold of the bit at the canter and sticking his nose out more rather than curling in, which is also why I don't try to get a big hold of them at the canter. And a lot of thoroughbreds are like that. If you take a huge hold of them, they'll bear down and then they get really behind the vertical and they're just leaning on the forehand and they'll start getting faster. But like I said, he's not one of the horses that was overly like that at the track. He was always very light in the mouth. So with him, I'm less worried about him getting fast and bearing down like that than I am just having him balanced and not running into the transition, because he's still expecting it to be exciting when he goes to canter, so he scoots forward into the transition. And it's also probably throwing him off that I'm sitting in the tack when I asked for the transition, because on the track I'd be like this when I asked him to canter, and he kind of just rolled him forward into the canter from the trot rather than actually giving them a firm leg aid like I am doing now. So it's throwing him off a little bit, and that's why initially for the first transition each direction, he'd scoot into it.
So it's just his uncertainty, Yeah.
Okay. This mare is a currently racing 3-year-old thoroughbred mare. She's currently doing her off-season work, so we're just getting her back into the swing of things. And I'm starting to teach her how to leg yield and do shoulder in and just get her moving laterally and independently off of my legs. I decided to teach her this because I figured it would help her with not being so heavy, because she had a tendency to try to dive forward and pull the reins out of the rider's hands. And apparently on the racetrack, she was very strong and was always doing this to try to get running away with people. So I thought it would be useful to teach her the lateral movements and shoulder in, because if you put a horse into one of these movements, it makes it a lot harder for them to get away from you. So I figured that this would be a useful skill for her to have. So here we're just practicing it at the walk. She's a lot better with moving off the leg to the left than she is to the right, so we need to work on it more to the right. And she does fight with the bit a little bit, so all I'm doing really with my hands is just resisting her when she tries to lurch forward and just getting her used to the type of contact that I'm holding, which is a looser and swinging contact where I move forward with her. I'm not pulling against her, but racehorses are trained to pull into the bridle, so she does do this sometimes. And then she hits my hands because I'm not going to give when she pulls forward, otherwise that's rewarding her for being bossy and trying to get the reins out of people's hands, which was one of her biggest issues with getting away from people on the track. I ride with my hands independently on her in lieu of using a cross, which is how I would typically ride on a racehorse in case they get strong. So I'm holding the reins like I would on any other riding horse. I'm not even holding a half cross. And for those of you who don't know what a cross is, it's basically where you cross the reins and then you bridge them across the neck. So if the horse gets heavy, they're pulling against themselves. So this is really useful for racehorses because they get really strong when they're galloping, and then you don't have to take the pull just from your arms. But I am not riding her with one here because I need to use my hands independently, because when she does dive, I just raise one hand and it prevents her from continuing to dive and corrects the behavior really easily without making a big deal about it. And it's really helps her out because in these videos today, she doesn't dive at all or try to do it. She's a little resistant and she'll curl her head and kind of turn her head and be a little silly with her mouth, but she's not diving and she's not being rude in terms of trying to get away from me or trying to wrench the reins out of my hands in the same way that she was. So a lot of the work I do with her is about bending, circling, doing basic lateral work to teach her how to do it, and just getting her to relax more and be happier under saddle and not as tense. She's quite a bit more tense than my horses are here, but she is getting a lot better and she's a lot more relaxed than when we started with her. I've only ridden her about 6 times, so we're still working on lots of stuff, but the consistency at the trot and the rhythm and just her general level of responsiveness is a lot better than it was before. You'll also notice that the equipment we use on racehorses is quite a bit different. I'm riding in an exercise saddle and she's riding in a martingale with a training fork and a halter underneath of her regular bridle with just a regular egg butt single jointed snaffle. So it's quite a bit different than how I would school my horses, but we just school them in what they are going to be training in regularly without changing the tack. So even though I'm technically doing basic foundational principles of dressage, she doesn't need to be in dressage tack for it. So if I had to pick some key points to leave you with in working with off-the-track thoroughbreds, they would be turn them out. And don't get one if you cannot provide them with turnout, because a lot of crazy horse issues are caused by lack of turnout, and they are just expressing their frustration of lack of motion in your rides. So that's number one. And then the second one is to develop a good flat foundation and get your horse relaxed in all gaits before ever introducing jumps. If your horse cannot go around, walk, trot, canter, relaxed, and carrying themselves half decently, they don't need to be jumping. And the third one would just be patient with them, be quiet with them, don't try to fight with them, don't be overly handsy, try to do your transitions downward predominantly off of seat and then just light pulsing half halts if you can. You don't want to grab a hold of these guys' faces. They are phenomenal horses. They will try their hearts out for you and they are so much fun to ride, but you have to do them right by not confusing them and not trying to fast track their process to get to the end goal, may it be jumping or whatever it is. You want the foundation to be there because if you have a good foundation, everything else will be way, way better. Another important point, though not applicable to me since these horses came from people I know and I know that they were preventatively treated, is that a lot of horses from the racetrack come off with ulcers, so it may be worth your while to consider treating them for ulcers, and then also to prevent them from coming back, Turnout and free choice hay. Make sure they always have access to forage, because if they don't, they're way more likely to get ulcers. And also, thoroughbreds really don't need as much grain as you think they do, especially if you gradually wean them off of the racehorse grain and into a new diet. My guys get like basically no grain, like just enough grain to hide their supplements. I had them just on hay for a very long time through the winter when they weren't really doing anything. And now that I'm putting them back into work, I'm just giving them grain to hide their supplements. And they look amazing. So don't fall into the stereotype of thoroughbreds constantly needing tons and tons of grain. Usually that means the quality of the hay isn't quite there, or if they're having difficulty keeping weight on, there's a really good chance they have ulcers, especially if you don't turn them out. Thank you for watching, and I'm going to continue this series as I develop both Percy and Pogo, so if there's anything you feel that I missed or if there's questions that you would like answered in the next one, feel free to comment them down below so that I know and I can address them in the next video. And I'll try to take all of your suggestions if there's specific topics you want covered in standalone videos within this series. Just give me some ideas, because for me, I've worked with these horses for so long that I'm sure there's stuff that I'm forgetting, because there's things that I'm just so used to dealing with already that I don't even think about the fact that other people might be struggling with them and not necessarily knowing the solution. So just give me suggestions. I'm happy to take them. And then also check out my store. The link is down below. And then also, if you liked the blanket that I showed at the beginning of the video, the link is at the top of my fold in the description. And you can click the link and get a discount with my code Shelby15. And I would love that. And I would also love if you check out my merch and my Instagram and other stuff where I post more updates of the horses that you might not see on here.